bringing the people behind our food to life.
Raw milk is unpasteurized, unhomogenized milk, straight from the animal, and then filtered and refrigerated. So there's really no processing done to it. Compared to conventional milk, which is a highly processed food, it's heated sometimes to very high temperatures to kill all the enzymes, any living organism that could be in the milk, with the idea that there are dangerous organisms in the milk. And then the cream is stripped off and then put back in very specific amounts. So even whole milk is not really whole milk. It's been highly processed. And then the homogenization process is especially damaging to the milk. It's forced at very high pressures through teeny tiny little holes, and it breaks down the fat structure of the milk so that it doesn't separate like real milk should. And in that process, the homogenization process, it actually oxidizes the cholesterol that's in the milk and makes it a dangerous form of cholesterol, whereas the cholesterol that's in raw milk is actually beneficial to the body. People drank raw milk for thousands of years, and it was really around the turn of the 20th century that raw milk kind of started getting looked at in an unfavorable light. They put a lot of dairies in cities next to distilleries, and basically they would be inside of a building being fed the spent grains from distilleries, and it made these cows extremely unhealthy. They would actually add chalk to the milk to make it look like milk because it was so watery, and these cows got tuberculosis and it spread like wildfire through these industrial dairies. And I mean, just disease was rampant in these dairies. And then the pasteurization process came about, and it basically made this milk drinkable and without killing you. And that's kind of when there started to be a change in how people looked at milk. I mean, at that time there was still a lot of small farms out in the countryside that produced quality milk, but as more and more people moved to the city and fewer people raised cows on a small scale, basically the pasteurized milk became the norm for everybody. And I think we're still left with that legacy that the state inspectors and federal inspectors still want to think that raw milk is unsafe when it actually can be produced extremely safe. There's been no deaths from raw milk in the last 15 years, but if you look in the media headlines, you wouldn't think that. You would think it's the most dangerous food out there.
Come on.
But it can be done safe, and it is being done safe. And by the federal government's own estimates, 3% of the population drinks raw milk on a regular basis. So if it was such a dangerous food, I mean, we'd be seeing people sick left and right, and we just don't see it. The chief fear from drinking raw milk is E. coli, and it's interesting how that came about, and it came about in the big dairies that are so against us drinking raw milk. When the cows eat a lot of grain, which they do in the commercial dairies, their rumen becomes acidic, and in the past, if it's a grass-fed cow, their rumen is fairly neutral, and so even if they have E. coli in their gut, and if it does get into the milk, the acid in our stomachs would kill that. But these cows with this acidic rumens, the E. coli have evolved to withstand the acid in their rumen, so when we consume them, the acid in our stomach doesn't kill it, and that's where the pathogens have spread. So it's kind of ironic that the ones who are most against raw milk, have been the ones that have basically proliferated the danger that comes from raw milk. And not all bacteria is bad. I mean, our lives depend on bacteria. I mean, there's probably more bacteria in our bodies than there are people in the world. So They're vitally important to us, and there are good bacteria in milk. Just by the fact that we are producing raw milk, we take a closer look at our cows. We are much more concerned about their health than if we knew that their milk was going to be pasteurized. Okay. And we have a much more intimate relationship with them. And we can see their moods. And whereas if we had a large herd and just milking by machine, they would just be a number. The reason we're in this position with raw milk being demonized, part of it is political, and part of it, but mostly it's money. There's a lot of money in the dairy industry, and the big dairy doesn't really want competition. So, I mean, and they have sway with the media and with state and federal governments. I mean, it's a large industry with a powerful lobby, and they kind of want to keep the status quo. There was a move last year to expand the raw milk exemption to 10 cows and 30 goats. And I actually went to Salem and testified in support of that. But there was the Dairy Board and the Farm Bureau brought out just all kinds of doctors and big dairymen to testify against it. And there was a lot of misinformation and fear, and basically it just died because it just hasn't gone far enough yet.